everyone, it's me the Johnny Monkey again. Sorry for the long silence, but I was hit by a combination of work, freelance work, sickness, Christmas, family visiting me visiting family, and a lightning strike that fried my modem. But hey, let's not obsess over that stuff. It's January 2014! We're in a new year! And that means it's time for recap videos and blind guesswork about what will happen in the new year. But rather than me making top 10 lists or anything like that, this is just going to be a list of general observations about some things that I wanted to talk about last year but couldn't for whatever reason. Also, quick disclaimer, if I don't mention a game and it doesn't appear in this list right now, it means that I just didn't get the chance to play it and haven't formed an opinion on it yet. But hey, I may get around to playing them in the future. Anyway, let's kick things off by looking at how the Wii U did. I started the year off with two surprisingly fun titles: Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed and LEGO City Undercover, which we will focus on now. The story was very child-friendly and the humour was hit or miss, but I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this game. The plot had many great twists and turns, LEGO City itself was well designed with loads of different areas to explore, and the humour worked well with the gameplay, especially in the free-falling sequences, which are some of my favourite moments in the entire game. Also, the finale was awesome. That's all I can say without spoiling it. After that, I'm sorry to say that nothing caught my interest on the Wii U until the very end of the year, when two platforming giants released their latest games: Sonic Lost World, which is a mixed bag that I will review later down the line, and Super Mario 3D World, which barely has a story, so it's not worth mentioning on this show. Although I will say that I did enjoy switching between the characters, and it's nice to see Peach actually doing something useful for a change. Also, I don't know why, but I find it strangely funny that whenever a female character gets a power, their hair instantly gets put into a more practical hairstyle.
Ponytail of Power!
There was only one other title I ended up playing on the Wii U this year, and that was Earthbound for the Virtual Console, which I've been playing in bursts. It's a really interesting game that has some strange humour, but also has a sense of childish innocence to it, as if everything in this world is based on a child's perception of reality. I haven't finished it yet, so my opinions on it may change, but I will say that this is a unique experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing the later chapters of this game. Meanwhile, the 3DS really took off this year. In fact, there were so many great titles that arrived on this console, I don't know where to start. Didion's Rolling Western, The Last Ranger, had a misleading title, but made up for it with everything else. At first, I thought it was going to be a more of the same type sequel, but the game expanded on everything. New characters were introduced, partners and rivals were added, new plot elements came into play, and we had the introduction of Wild West style duels, which perfectly captured the tension of a quick draw situation and took me completely off guard and made me excited about playing the game again. Also appearing in the download scene was Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, which was a great step forward for the Ace Attorney franchise, striking a great balance between continuing Apollo's story, allowing Phoenix to return as a lawyer, as well as introducing the new rookie lawyer, Athena Sykes. The only thing that lets it down is the final case, or rather the final villain, which even by Ace Attorney standards was just plain ridiculous, but otherwise it was a great experience. Project EXO was an interesting crossover that, again, I plan to review at some point, and Mario & Luigi Dream Team, whilst having some charm and interesting ideas, just didn't click with me. Don't get me wrong, in the 8 hours I played, there were some good moments like the journey into Dreams Deep, but in the end I lost interest because the plot was moving at a snail's pace and I was tired of all of the humour boiling down to, look, this guy is weird! And an asshole! That said, people keep telling me that it gets better later on, so maybe I'll go back to that game in the future. But of course, this is all preamble to two of the biggest 3DS titles this year: Fire Emblem Awakening and Pokemon X and Y. Fire Emblem Awakening was created as a potential swan song to the series, and if it had ended here, which it won't since this game's sales were ridiculously high, it would have been a great finale. Part of me wishes I could spend the rest of this video gushing about the game and its plot, but we have a lot to cover, so I'll just bring up all the positive points in a way that will force you to pause the video if you want to read them. But I'll sum it up by saying that any flaws this game has are quickly outweighed by the positives. and it's the only game this year I've played through twice and want to play a third time. Buy it! Meanwhile, Pokemon X and Y is a game that has an amazing experience, but a bland story. What I mean by that is that the actual plot and dialogue have depressingly taken a step down from Black and White in terms of quality, but the design of the world and the new elements that show up in every town prevent you from getting bored. On top of that, the Pokemon and Me and Super Trainer features give you new ways to interact with your Pokemon that have a lasting impact on the game. And I can honestly say that this is the first Pokemon team I've grown genuinely attached to. It would take too long to explain why, but the long and short of it is, the more time you spend in Pokemon and Me, the more Pokemon will start acknowledging you and showing signs of affection, which appeals to the soppier animal-loving side of me. That's why, even if the story isn't as good as it could have been, I'm happy to have experienced this journey with my team of Pokemon. But I've talked enough about Nintendo, so let's move on to the PlayStation 2 I managed to get my hands on last Christmas. I was enjoying Wild Arms 3, but it got to a point where I couldn't find the next town, and I kind of got distracted by, well, everything else that came out this year. So yeah, I really need to finish that at some point. In the meantime, I picked up Metal Gear Solid 2 for the first time, and holy crap, this game. I have never been more conflicted over a gaming narrative in my life. It's like this insane, weird fusion of both good and bad. Gad, maybe? I don't know. But it's an interesting game to study, and we are definitely gonna have a VGT episode on this in the near future. Another big game I finally managed to play was Beyond Good and Evil. Whilst I think people hype up its depth a little too much given the black and white nature of the main conflict, I will say that it does deserve the praise it gets. The characters are all really likeable, the plot is well paced, and the world is well built and feels really natural, so I'm glad I had the chance to play it. I also enjoyed playing through the strange but charming and surprisingly character-driven story of Klonoa 2. It's not exactly a challenging story, but it's a step up from most platforming games, so if you're a fan of the genre, you might want to check this out. Lastly, I've tried to get into gaming on Steam this year, with mixed results. I've already started playing through Thomas Was Alone and Dust: An Elysian Tale, both of which I'm enjoying but haven't had the time to finish them yet. However, my attempts to play Tomb Raider 2013 and the Stanley Parable never really got off the ground due to technical difficulties, which was frustrating because what little elements I saw of them before they lagged, or in the case of Stanley Parable, crashed into oblivion, were really good. And before anyone asks, whilst I wasn't able to make much progress in Tomb Raider 2013, from what little I did play, I find it hard to call the new Lara Croft a weak character, considering that in the small section I did play, she gets out of a cocoon by throwing herself into a fire, fights off a bigger man twice, causes a cave-in with an explosion, escapes said cave by climbing up a muddy hill, ascends a waterfall by climbing the wreckage of a plane whilst it's falling apart, and crosses a chasm by balancing on a log, all the while only showing the frustration and nervousness that anyone would have had in those situations. This leads me to two social points that happened this year. I've got a Twitter account that I'm thinking about using in conjunction with this channel, but right now I'm using it to follow two people. One of them being the game writer Rhianna Pratchett, who often posts witty and insightful tweets about the gaming industry and writing as a whole, including this lovely little quote in response to people who claim that Lara Croft had been weakened because of her outburst in Tomb Raider 2013.
So women have to wait for a man to cry before it's okay? Bollocks!
Of course, the issue of women in gaming has gotten more and more attention this year, with many questions being raised about how we portray women in games, or at least AAA games, how we treat women developers, creative freedom and fantasy versus respect for the audience, etc. These are all complicated issues, and there needs to be a serious discussion about them if we want to achieve true equality. Unfortunately, this is the internet, so 9 times out of 10, all discussions of these subjects quickly devolve into wild accusations, childish insults, and desperate arguments that make my head hurt just reading them. Every time these issues are brought up, both sides of the debate get overly sensitive and try to argue that they somehow have the high ground, that they are smarter, and they should win this argument because they're right! They're right and you're wrong, damn it! And frankly, it's just sad. This shouldn't be about egos. This shouldn't be about winning. It should be about finding a sensible way to make gaming fun for everyone. But no, we can't have sensible discussions because apparently none of us are ready to grow up yet. Well, with that rant off my chest, let's focus on the new year. Obviously I'm looking forward to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, which is looking better and better with each new trailer. Hyrule Warriors looks like it'll be an interesting experiment, and of course Smash Bros will be a blast when it comes out. On the PlayStation front, Persona 4 is the latest rental to come my way, so I'm looking forward to playing that. And digging through my game basket, I realised that I still have a copy of Final Fantasy IX that needs to be played. Also, now that the new generation of consoles has been released, I'm thinking about purchasing the PlayStation 3 now that the prices are slowly dropping, so I can play some of the bigger hits that I've missed this year. Plus, I really want to play Tales of Graces, Tales of Xillia, and the Mass Effect trilogy. And of course, my New Year's resolution is to get more content out the door. Even if it's small episodes like this one, or if I have to make allowances to the big episodes, like cutting down on the amount of live action footage I use. But either way, there's plenty of great stuff in the pipeline. Regarding VGT side quests, I've already mentioned several small reviews I'm planning to work on, but there's even more to come, including a Metroid Other M character study, a special retrospective of a certain series, and a multi-part review of Sonic Adventure 2. For the main Video Game Troubadour episodes, we have Fragile Dream, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, Metal Gear Solid 2, and another game I bought this year, James Bond, Everything or Nothing. And that's everything I wanted to cover. Happy New Year everyone, I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio.